everybody, and welcome to Kwese Sports, Africa's sporting social media show for the fans. In today's show, our guest is a specialist in performance psychology and success enabler. We delve into the psychology of the sports world. We'll check out what's hot and trending in sports and social media and catch you up on some current sports news. Welcome back, Kandai. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. So tell me, what's been happening on your social media handle? Like, what's happening on your highlights? What's your highlight?
Well, my social media highlight this week is very exciting. I love couples that work and stay together, and Webb Simpson and his wife sort of did this for me. So he was basically practicing for his Masters in Georgia, and unfortunately his caddy, Paul Tesori, wasn't able to make it in time for their tee-off because he was sort of caught up. There's some really bad weather. But his beautiful wife, Dowd, stepped in just like a, proper first lady does.
Oh, wow.
And she caddied for him, and he got his practice in. So I love that.
Do you know
Couple
what?
power.
I'll only say one thing.
Yes.
Dowd is not dowdy, so that's a good thing.
No, she is not. Zisla, what about you? What are your social media highlights this week?
Right, so mine is Dialli, right? They played against Watford. Tottenham played against Watford, and he scored a perfect goal, and everyone was talking about it on social media, saying that he is so similar to Messi. So everyone's loving him and they think he is the future. However, straight after that goal, he and Heung-min Song decided to get together and do this hand little thing just to celebrate. And unfortunately, that overshadowed that perfect goal that he gave in. And it's so unfortunate because now everyone is talking about the celebration, as they're calling it, as opposed to that goal. So I don't know, it's a bit unfortunate that that perfect goal of his has been overshadowed by that hand gesture. I thought the hand gesture was cute though.
Absolutely. Come on, this goal was amazing. They celebrated accordingly. I think, people are just getting too emotional.
I think we need to have one of our own.
We do.
Can we work on that later?
Yes.
I like the sound of that. Now remember, you can be part of this very conversation right now by adding your comments and views on these social media platforms. You can like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Kwese Sports. Follow us on Twitter at Kwese Sports, and you can tweet us using the hashtag Kwese Sports. And if you want to know everything about Kwese, all our live streaming, all you have to do is go into our website, www.kwesesports.com. Kandai, do you not think it's time for us to meet our guest?
I think it is.
Shall we go?
Let's go.
As you can see, we are back in studio, and Kandai and I are ready to set this conversation on fire with our guest, and I'm pretty sure you're going to learn a thing or two from him. Now, Julian de la Hunt is the owner of Impossible to Inevitable Africa and a senior partner in the international business based in the UK named Eye2Eye. He has more than 15 years experience in business and coaching locally and internationally, and he's a qualified HR professional in industrial psychology. He's also an entrepreneur, a speaker, a performance expert, and has coached at board, executive, senior and middle management levels across a variety of industry. Julian and Eye2Eye have worked with international sporting teams, Olympic athletes, golfers, tennis players, cricket franchises, among others. In addition, he is also the co-founder and owner of the Mentor Hub, a skills mentor and protege matching tool which aims to close the skill gaps and reduce the high levels of unemployment through matching the right people with best fit mentors across industry. Julian has recently delivered projects in New York, Singapore, the Middle East and the UK, and combines that experience with the experience gained at the Innovation Hub and Olympic athletics into a truly African context. He's a regular guest on local TV and radio on topics ranging from leadership, performance cultures, and team identity to self-improvement, sport, business, and more. Julian believes that when you push yourself to the edge of your comfort zone, have the courage and conviction to follow your dreams, things go from being impossible to being inevitable. Welcome to Kwese Sports, Julian.
Thank you, ladies. Great to be here.
It's such an honor to have you here. You're so experienced in what you do. We've got so many questions for you, actually. But before we get into that, I want to know, you said something that resonated with me, and that was about moving out of your comfort zone, and that the impossible will become inevitable. I want to know about that comfort zone in your life.
Yes, I think 15 years of corporate really got to a point where there was a divine intervention. I had to shift myself out of that comfort zone and really move into something that was going to take me to the next level. And that was 5 years ago, really developing this Eye2Eye concept in Africa and South Africa from a sports psychology point of view.
So tell us a little bit more about Eye to Eye. Which are the teams that you guys have worked with?
So some of the biggest teams around the world that I think most people will be familiar with is Manchester United, Everton Football Club. We've won the FA Cup with the Wigan Athletic. We've won the IPL. We've also won the Cricket World Cup with Gary Kirsten and India. Darren Clark was one of our really kind of spearheaded clients when he won his first ever Open in 2011. Okay. And then Banyana, the South African ladies football team, South African cricket, etc., etc. Those are really the biggest clients that most people will be familiar with.
So clearly you're so much into your sport. So I want to know, who is your favorite team?
So for my sins, I'm a Liverpool fan from a football point of view, and that's been 20 hard years of supporting them. But spending a lot of time in the psychology and sports psychology realm these days, I'm more focused on which teams around the world are ultimately kind of looking after mental health, which are focusing on high performance and elite sport, which captains are strategically the best, which individuals get the best out of their teammates, etc., etc. So when those big team derbies come along, the Barcelona versus Real Madrid, that's not for me. I don't pick sides anymore. I now look at, well, what's the strategy behind the coaching
staff? Above that now.
Well, I wouldn't say above that, but I'm looking deeper into it, and maybe that's sitting on the fence a little bit, but I'm still a diehard Liverpool fan, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And do you follow them on social media? And Liverpool, and who else do you follow? Athletes and teams on social media?
Absolutely, absolutely. I follow obviously a lot of the Premier League football teams. A lot of African footballers are of great interest to me. The Adebayors, the ex-footballers. I still look at Pele's feed from time to time. And right the way through from competitors in the Wayne Rooney's and obviously more locally in football, from a football point of view, Sadio Mane and Stevie G, the old Liverpool guys. So really a whole array. I recently started following, about a year ago, the Chicago Cubs, following their great exploits and 100 years of not winning anything, and the psychology that went into the mind games, etc., before they won their baseball league in the US.
Right, so I want to know, because this is a social media show, what role does social media play on an athlete's psyche?
So social media, as with really any media or any distractions, could be a potential distractor. It could be a success enabler if the athlete is coached properly, has someone who's really managing the brand and understanding that social media could be used to your advantage. Okay. It could also be obviously a major distraction as a coach, as a family member, someone you're trying to impress while you're on the field. And distractions, we know from research and from studies, could really hamper elite performance and athletic performance. When you're distracted, you're spending a lot of emotional energy, you're spending a lot of mental energy on that aspect of your game, and that sometimes takes away from the physical performance.
Sure, you can't really always just concentrate on the negative, is it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, and physical performance, obviously you have to be in tip-top shape, but how much of sport is mental?
Well, I mean, from our belief, as you train yourself physically, you need to train yourself emotionally and mentally. So, sports psychology plays a massive role in elite performance and really kind of epitomizes what we do. The repetitive motion of what we do. I spoke previously on another show about intensity times frequency really creates dendrite formation. It creates habitual type behaviors that when you're in the moment, when you're at a high performance event, you're in a high pressure situation, that you can fall back on what you've spent hours and hours, and often, we talk about the 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything, and it's really that the frequency with which you train for something and then the intensity which you train for it will ultimately set you apart in those high pressure situations.
Talking about those high pressure situations, like a championship for an elite athlete, what mental preparation do they go through to get to that point?
So plenty of hard work goes into it. There's trigger words that get understood. We work right the way through, from conditioning all the way through to how that influences your behavior. So your conditioning, and that's social media, that's the information, and we really use social vitamins and mental vitamins as the code word that we use. And it's what you're putting into your conditioning on a daily basis ultimately relates to what your belief becomes around that. So someone like Muhammad Ali. He became the greatest boxer in the world, but he was telling people long before he was the greatest boxer that he would be the greatest boxer in the world. And he was feeding information to the social realm, not only to the media, but also to his competitors who walked into the ring thinking, this guy is the greatest boxer in the world. I've really got to be upping my game here. And he was winning the battle off the field before he actually arrived in studio, really, or on the ring.
Yeah.
Yes, and talking about winning the battle off the field, you know, very recently Dustin Johnson and Sadio Mane, I mean, they've been injured, and a little bit further back, Tiger Woods, you know, he had a huge hiatus from the golfing course. And what kind of mental state do you need to be in, or what do you do to your mind to sort of keep it in the game, even though you're not physically in the game?
Yeah, so, you know, again, as I said, similarly to the way you need to condition your body and strengthen your body over time, when you're facing an injury or time off, suspensions, whatever it might be, these athletes really need to spend a lot of time playing the kind of mental games, keeping themselves sharp and keeping themselves in the game. Many athletes won't potentially be able to handle a lot of those pressures. That's when the mental coaches come in. They'll lean on support of family members, of coaches, of mentors in the industry or in the sport that they play. But it's really important that they stay sharp, that they keep themselves on the top of their game, and that when they're back on the field, you know, they can almost take off where they left off.
You know, as you know, Julian, better than we do, that bullying is very rife in sport. And looking at countries like Italy and Russia, where if you're a non-white athlete, you tend to get a bit profiled. You know, for example, Mario Balotelli, you know, after the last World Cup where he scored for Italy, went back home, even though he was raised in Italy. He was adopted by an Italian family, so he's very much Italian. Went back home, and there was a lot of backlash against him, even though he was the only one who was doing something that was quite good for Italy in that World Cup. So what does he go through to always get that constant backlash from people?
Yeah, so, you know, when we talk about social media, we're saying to our athletes, you know, when you're setting the message out there, you're really inviting the public, your fans, into your house, into your kitchen, or into your living room. So when you're sending messages out there on social media and you're creating up a storm, which Mario Balotelli really has done, you know, he's been almost the master of his own destiny, or what, you know, the opposite of that. He's from my beloved Liverpool, spent a couple of years there, which were really not successful years. At a stage, he was one of the most sought-after players in world football. He, however, decided that, you know, he was going to be controversial. Maybe he didn't plan ahead. Maybe he didn't plan for all eventual scenarios. And we're often saying to people, if you're going to play to your strengths on social media, if you're the fun guy, be the fun guy and play to that strength. If you're the technical expert and you want to send out technical messages, so be it. But if you're going to be the controversial one on social media, know that there might be a backlash at some stage.
And should be able to take it.
And should be able to take it. So maybe, as I said, he didn't plan for all these eventualities, and, you know, he gets home to his own people. He's been so controversial that he's almost upset some of the fans that were totally beloved to him at some stage.
Yes, and you have someone like Mario Balotelli, and obviously backlash to him. But how does it affect the rest of his teammates? So, for example, anyone who's in a team and they're getting all this backlash and this negative press and negative energy, how does it affect the rest of the team?
So, I mean, you know, that's a very interesting one, because you find that some coaches like to thrive on the aspect where they've got one or two controversial aspects, one or two controversial players in their setup, and those controversial players, the rest of the team can feed off. In other team environments, you take the All Blacks, which is arguably the world's greatest rugby team and has been for a while. They've got a no-nonsense policy. They're saying, we're all about the team. If you're controversial, there's no real space for you in this team. We're all about it, the value of team culture, a brotherhood, if you can call it that. It's everyone for the team. Otherwise, no matter whether you're Dan Carter, the world's best rugby player at a stage, you know, you wouldn't fit into our structures. You wouldn't fit into our process. And as a result, it makes it easy in a team culture like that to slot new players in and out as injuries come, as suspensions come. But when players become too big for their boots, unfortunately, you know, as that's happened, yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, Julian, we've got so much to talk to, but up next, we're going to continue the conversation on sports psychology, and we're going to take a look at what's happening between Lewis Hamilton and Cristiano Ronaldo and what the correlation there is. And of course, we have to take a look at the Miami Open and look at what Nick Kyrgios is up to. You know, he's got a bit of a temper. if you're just joining us, I'm here to tell you that you've missed out on a really good conversation with Julian who is here to talk to us about all things sports psychology. He gave us a little bit of an insight on what happens to an athlete when they go through a trauma, like Sadio Mane, who couldn't perform in the Champions League anymore, and just telling us what he goes through and what he has to do to stay on top of his game and come back next season. And of course, we're going to take a little look at Cristiano Ronaldo and Lewis Hamilton in a little bit. But continuing with our conversation, make sure that you contact us on those social media platforms, because this is not a conversation without you. Now, thinking about the Arsenal fans, they have been emphasizing about Wenger out ever since we lost to Bayern Munich 10-2, which is very embarrassing, by the way. So I want to know what goes through Wenger's mind as a coach. You know, everyone is so against him. He had done a great job for so long, and now social media, every time we read about him, it's always Wenger out, Wenger out, Wenger out. What's going through his mind right now?
Firstly, I hear you say we, so I know this is close to home.
Yes, it is.
But, you know, so Wenger's a seasoned professional. What he will be doing, and you know, the best advice to him at this stage would be to stay out of the media, to stay out of the tabloids, and that's really what he'll be doing. He'll be keeping a low profile. They'll be refocusing on some new objectives and some new goals, which may not have looked anywhere near that they look like at the moment 6 weeks or 6 months ago. They would have been focusing towards a title when December came around. You know, you were some of the players were really hitting their straps. Wenger was looking in control, and then all of a sudden they go through the slump. So Wenger will really be refocusing his team. He'll be staying out of the media, out of the kind of limelight, and he'll really be knuckling down to reaching those new objectives potentially before he leaves the club at the end of the season, if that's going to happen.
I wonder. Hopefully.
Now, we spoke about athletes taking a little bit of time off the field because of an injury and what headspace they're in, you know, to get back into it. But taking a look at someone like Maria Sharapova, for example, she's been off, she had a ban, she's been off the court, and now she's sort of coming back. Now, you know, what mental space does she need to be in to move forward? Or what mental space is she in after a doping scandal?
Yeah, so doping scandals are obviously a very difficult and traumatic time for athletes. You know, they'll come back. Well, they would have spent a lot of time, firstly, in this off time, going through the various emotions of anger, of disappointment, kind of anxiety, fear. You know, what is it going to look like if I return? Should I return? Where's my career going? They would have had you know, some real bad press, and if they're spending a lot of time reading the tabloids and focusing on social media, she'll know what the fans are saying. She'll know what her fellow competitors either are saying or thinking, and she'll have preconceived ideas. We often speak about self-imposed limits, and we often set those self-imposed limits on ourselves before we get out onto the field. And she could potentially be doing that, setting her self-imposed limits, that would I ever be as good as I was when I left the playing field. So, you know, again, our advice or the advice that she should be getting at the moment is, let's go through the motions. When Rory McIlroy won his Open, he spoke about process and pick your spot. That was really it. He said, I'll clear my mind, and everything that I do is around pick my spot and trust my process. So that's really the advice that we would be giving to someone like Maria, is get out there, trust the fact that you've got the talent and you can play the game, trust the process and pick your spots.
Great. So, you know, we've heard so much about Lewis Hamilton and Cristiano Ronaldo on the news lately. And Ronaldo, it was about the new statue that has become a hot meme, and Hamilton winning the Grand Prix. But I hear that they're in the news for very different reasons. Kandai, what's the story?
Well, Lewis Hamilton won the Grand Prix this past weekend in China, but before the season started, he announced that he had opted not to have a personal trainer, despite the new cars being more physically demanding. Now, on the other hand, this past week, Cristiano Ronaldo, who is in great shape as we see, he's always got his shirt off, has revealed the personal trainer responsible for his hot physique. Now, her name is Samantha Clayton, and she's a British Olympic sprinter. Now, Julian, I'll come to you. You know, these two 80% athletes, big guys in the game. One has decided that he's not going to have a personal trainer at all, and the other one has opted for this, you know, Olympic athlete. So how does that work? How does one choose, you know, obviously, let's say the best or among the best trainer, and one choose not to have one at all?
So I think, I mean, let's start with Lewis Hamilton. You know, he's been around the block, and excuse the pun, but he's been around the block many times. He's probably had one or two either not so good incidents. Perhaps he's not feeling he's getting the ultimate from the coaches that he's been having, and maybe he's found himself in a kind of situation where he understands what gets the best out of himself. He won't be going at this 100% on his own, that I can guarantee you. He'll have mentors in the industry, he'll have individuals perhaps in other sports that he looks up to and admires that potentially would be assisting him. So he's definitely not going at this 100% on his own. He is seasoned, however, and he knows what works for him and what doesn't. I give him maybe a season, and perhaps we'll see him, back to a fitness coach. On the other hand, Cristiano Ronaldo, I think, and this is just a theory, but he might be going out there saying, well, I've just really launched to the world that I've got this British former athlete or current athlete who's my personal trainer. Maybe he's looking at a Zlatan type return to a Premier League for the last couple of seasons of his career. He might be trying to get the enduring support of fans. Nothing these elite athletes do, especially the Cristiano Ronaldos of the world, gets done in isolation. They've thought this through. They've understood that there's a PR campaign that goes into this. They've understood that the message they send out there may sit very well with some British fans who might be potentially welcoming him back for a 2 or 3 year stint before he ends his career, where he can kind of win a Premier League, put his hand up and finally say to Messi, well, really, maybe I am the greatest footballer that's ever lived.
So you don't think that he wants to stay Real anymore?
No,
Is that what you're trying to tell us?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But I think he's trying to perhaps get some endurance, and also, this lady that is his coach. She is a fantastic fitness coach, and he's big in Europe, he's big around the world, and he's probably just trying to create some sort of social media hype. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a new range of sportswear that comes out, soon.
So, it's interesting that Hamilton doesn't have a coach like what you're saying right now, but surely now that he's in this championship, he should be having a physical one, as opposed to just a mental one.
Well, absolutely. I mean, mental health and physical health go hand in hand. You're a holistic individual. We never speak to one without the other. As our health plays a massive role, so does our mental state. Like I said, I don't think this would be it'll be a long time. There'll be guys knocking on his door, really kind of enticing him with great proposals and propositions around his physical fitness. So maybe he's just taking a short hiatus out of that realm, and he'll be back in very shortly, I think.
Now, to another athlete that could use a mental coach. Now, during Miami Open, Nick Kyrgios felt the pressure of playing against Roger Federer and ultimately lost 7-6, 6-7, 7-6. Now, what was interesting, though, is that during the match, a fan distracted him by yelling out, just as he was about to serve at 5-4. Kyrgios, who is known to be temperamental, lost it and responded with, "What are you doing? Shut the F up." And that set the crowd off and booed him even further. However, the reaction on social media was in support of him, with the likes of Boris Becker and Federer supporting him. Kundai, do you think that it was just for him to react like that?
Absolutely. My understanding of tennis is that as they're about to take that serve, it needs to be complete silence. Our phones off, don't whisper, nothing. So I think for this person to come out and yell this, obviously it's so distracting, and I think absolutely it was justified for him to get upset and probably say something. What I think wasn't justified was dropping F-bombs on the court. There's children out there, and
but it's a lot of pressure. This is a big game. It's Miami Open. He's focused, and someone just yells out.
Yeah,
excuse
but he can't drop F-bombs. He's a brand ambassador. People look towards him, and as much as he's just a man, he's also a sportsman, and people look to him. So, he does just need to watch that potty mouth. But yeah, I might have, thrown something at the person. So, yeah.
Julian, do you think that this little encounter may have just set him off and helped him lose?
Well, absolutely. There's pivotal moments in sport and in matches that really could turn a game. We often hear about a bad refereeing decision, a ball that's just crossed the line, and that could potentially upset the player to such an extent that they lose complete focus. Now, in this instance, you don't often in your career get the opportunity to get that close to beating Roger Federer. He would have planned the scenario over in his head many, many times. He gets to this situation for the first time, and I think it's the first time in his career where he's this close to beating Roger Federer in front of a big crowd. And unfortunately, a moment like that where he creates a focus on something external, he loses the ability to remain calm in a high-pressure situation. Roger Federer would have just steamrolled him after that, and that would have been the end of it. So absolutely, I believe that moment was critical and pivotal to him losing the match.
Do you think, now that you've mentioned this, do you think that the opponent, perhaps Roger Federer or his team, placed that person to yell out to distract him?
Major conspiracy theory, but no, I wouldn't think so. Roger Federer doesn't need that type of assistance. He's arguably one of the greatest tennis players. I don't think that would have been the case. Not that it doesn't happen in world sport. People use mental tactics and all kinds of nuclear or Gulf warfare, to kind of influence the outcome of games. But I don't think so. I think Roger Federer would have picked up on his emotion, and he would have known that it's a matter of time. I've pretty much steamrolled this game. Now you just get moments in games where well, that was it, and I think Kyrgios would have been very, very aware of the fact that he's probably just chucked it away as well.
But what's actually surprising is that Federer's wife, she was actually mocking him, and she got a lot of backlash on social media. What do you think about that, Kandak?
Oh, just unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
he said, it's Roger Federer. He doesn't need any help. And I think, she's Mrs. Federer. She needs to just,
Just chill and be
yeah,
Mrs.
her
Federer.
mama's going to win. So, she just, take the high road and just, she didn't need to do all that.
So she just needs to chill and be Mrs. Federer.
Yeah, she doesn't need to do all that. We don't need all that.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but we could talk forever and ever. You've got so much information. We need to get you back on the show.
It's been awesome, ladies. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And Kandai, it's always a pleasure.
It is, Julian. I'm so excited to have you here. And I think after the show, we need to get to that 80% level and how we
Yes.
can, we could still be athletes.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, I'll give you my business card and we can spend some time together and we'll have a chat.
Great, fantastic. Now, you can join us again next week, Wednesday. Remember, we want to hear from you, so better make sure you use those social media platforms. So until next Wednesday, see you next time.
He simply devastated.